Today we're going to be talking about trauma and 7 things you can do to feel better with everything that's going on today. So if you're interested in that, stick around. I had something completely different to share with you today, but with everything that's going on, I'd kind of be remiss as someone who has worked in the counseling field not to address the things that are going on. My concern is how people are dealing with these rapidly changing events that we have coming up. As a nation, we have become very divided, but in many ways, when it comes to the worldwide tragedies that are occurring, we're united in this struggle. Unfortunately, we all have an increase in fear and anxiety every day, and we just aren't always equipped to deal with this, especially as fast as these things are occurring. We are getting hit with one thing after another. These rapid changes have us feeling unsafe. We are finding ourselves struggling in relationships that we've held for years because of our differing opinions. We are all experiencing some form of trauma. That's why I felt compelled today to talk to you about some of the ways that I have went about managing all of these reoccurring emotions and some ways that might be helpful for you as well. Now, just to make it clear, I'm not here today to diagnose anyone or provide any treatment for any disorders. I'm just simply here to tell you some things that I have found that really have worked for me. And I'm hoping that if you use them, they will work for you as well. Well, I guess before we get started, we probably should talk about exactly what is trauma, right? Well, trauma is an emotional response to a terrible life event or an accident, a rape, or natural disasters or something like that. And there are actually 3 kinds of trauma. Acute trauma results from a single event. So maybe you've had something tragic that's happened and you've managed to get past that. Chronic trauma, which is repeated and it occurs for a prolonged period of time. And complex trauma, which is exposure to multiple and varied traumatic events. Now, based on those very definitions, I feel like we are going through and experiencing complex trauma because we have continued to be exposed to multiple traumatic events. So much so that everything feels traumatic. Doesn't everything feel like over the top for you right now? Things that we used to let roll right on off our back are now causing intense feelings. Think about it. 5 years ago, if someone blew their horn at you, you might think, what in the world is their problem? You might say some explicitives above your radio, but that was literally about it. Let me tell you, just the other day, I was listening to the news and this woman was on the freeway. This man was cutting her off. It probably wasn't enough room, and she honked her horn at him. And don't you know this person shot at her? What in the world is going on here? This is nuts. Here's what I think is going on here. I think we've just become hypersensitive to things that happen because we never have the opportunity to recover from one trauma before we're hit with another one, right? Don't you agree? What makes things even more difficult is that we're going through trauma ourselves. And then we're going through secondary trauma because we're watching the trauma that other people are experiencing. And then we can also be traumatized watching how other people are responding to the trauma that they're experiencing. When this happens, our focus is on fear and how we can survive to the very next thing that we're about to get hit with, whatever that thing might be. Whether that fear is rational or irrational. Think about it. If you're always on 10 emotionally due to repeated trauma, then it's no wonder that when little things happen that wouldn't have affected you before, now you overreact. Not to say that you can't hold ownership over your behavior, but it's a little more understandable. At least we can understand why we're so sensitive to those tiny things. Half the battle is just understanding where you're at and being able to identify whether or not you're being rational, or are you responding to this tiny little thing that's went wrong in a huge way because of something that has already happened and has built up, and you're just now here at the top. So it's just something to be mindful of. The cool thing is that our minds are so powerful. We have the ability to see into the past and reflect on our past. We have the ability to fully embrace and experience our present, and we have the ability to anticipate the future, which on one hand is amazing. But on the other hand, it's the very thing that tends to bring about our anxiety. Because we're thinking about all the things that have happened, all the things that are currently going on, and then you're looking at what might possibly happen and thinking about the future. And that's where our anxiety builds. So let me tell you a story. So back in 2020, my husband was going through a medical condition, and it was so scary, right? I wasn't sleeping, I couldn't eat right, I was physically sick to my stomach. The very thought of possibly having to go to the hospital brought me to tears. Partially because of his health, and partially because of what we could possibly be exposed to just simply by going to the hospital. It was just way too much. And I'm sure everyone's had those type of experiences throughout this situation we're going through. Well, anyway, I remember at one point I felt like I had completely lost my mind. I was pacing through the house, and I was all upset, and I was thinking, we can't see anyone, and everyone's fighting all over the streets, and there's so much sickness, and I can't find my nail polish, and I can't find my glasses. Which, mind you, were sitting on top of my head, but I digress. At any rate, I flopped down on the couch and completely lost it and cried my eyes out. And my husband, who can be a big old huge teddy bear, came over and calmly gathered up my crumpled soul. He took my glasses off my head, placed them on my face, helped me get dressed, and we drove to the park where we sat outside and people watched in silence. Now I tell you that story because my reaction was completely over the top. But I was so overwhelmed with having tragedy after tragedy, and then watching these things unfold in society and the news stuff coming at me. I felt like I had no control over what was going on around me. And I didn't. I didn't have control over those things. And neither do you. Half the battle is trying to figure out what you have control over and what you don't have control over. Look, I had allowed these thoughts to run around in my head so much that I couldn't even enjoy the good times when we had them, because I was so busy looking at all the bad things that have occurred and all the bad things that could possibly happen. Now at the time, nothing was going on. There was no reason I couldn't enjoy the moment. But I couldn't enjoy the moment because I couldn't get myself situated. What did I do? I decided what I had control over is how I react to things that are going on around me. And that's a choice that you can make as well. Now, I've been fortunate enough to have good people and professionals in my life that have given me several tools that I could use to help myself to get grounded when my thinking was all over the place. These tools were important because I needed a way to stop and recharge, Because if I didn't take a moment to take care of myself, I wasn't going to be able to take care of him, my husband, or anybody else if they needed me. Because you can't pour from an empty cup. So what is grounding? Grounding allows people to take a moment to step back from all the negative thoughts and flashbacks or whatever you're having. And when you step back, you can decrease the intensity of the feeling that's distracting you. And you do that by using your 5 senses. Sounds simple, right? But you got to give it a try. The next time that you are feeling anxious and overwhelmed, first, take a moment to breathe, but not just any kind of breathing. Typically, when we're fearful or experiencing anxiety, we breathe from the chest. But what I'd like you to do the next time you're feeling anxious is to try instead to breathe from your belly. Imagine someone's got a string attached to your navel and they're gently pulling that string. And breathe out and breathe in. And breathe out and breathe in. Now what should be moving is your belly. The reason this is helpful, I have learned, is because when you do belly breathing, it increases dopamine. And dopamine is a hormone that ignites the pleasure sensors and makes you feel better. So after you've done that, the next thing that you want to do is look around and choose 5 things that you can see. Choose 4 things that you can hear. 3 things that you can feel. 2 things that you can smell. And 1 thing that you can taste. Now, feel free to pause the video and write that down, because this will help you when you're feeling anxious. So we're going to try this together just for practice. 5 things that you can see. Just stop yourself and think. It'll help you get centered and focus on something else other than what's making you anxious. So 5 things I can see. I can see my plant. I can see my brown curtains. I can see my black camera. I can see my tan door. I can see my white container. Look around your room and name 5 things that you can see. And it's helpful if you name the color and the item, because it brings you into being able to focus even more. All right, now, 4 things that I can hear. I can hear my air conditioner. I can hear the world from my computer. I can hear the clock ticking. And I can hear the nails of my dog that's walking around. 3 things that you can feel. I can feel the air blowing on my face. I can feel my butt sitting in the chair. And I can feel my feet on the floor. 2 things you can smell. I can smell my body wash. I can smell jasmine. I don't know why I smell jasmine. There's no jasmine in my house, but I smell jasmine. Anyway, and 1 thing you can taste. I taste my Crest toothpaste. Feel free to kind of try that thing using the 5 senses when you're starting to feel anxious, because it will really pull you back in. I'm not going to tell you anything that I haven't tried myself. The 3rd thing that's helpful is if you can take a minute and just stop and remind yourself of the date and time. That helps you get back to the present. Number 4, play some music, because honey, music will change your mood. Think about it. If you have a really good song, turn it on, you listen and you think, oh girl, that's my song. Now all of a sudden you dancing through the house, right? Number 5, identify at least one person that you can go to and speak freely. You see, just the simple act of talking about our experiences out loud gives our mind the ability and time it needs to process the information. So find someone that will just let you talk and let them know in advance, hey, I don't need you to fix anything. I don't need you to respond. I just need you to be quiet and listen. I think you'll be surprised that when you have the opportunity to just speak freely and talk, sometimes doing this will help you formulate a decision that you need to make. Or listening to yourself, you'll realize that you are completely insane and you are rambling, and what you're talking about doesn't even make any sense and is extremely irrational, and sometimes that's enough to bring you back. The 6th thing is seek professional help. I'm not ashamed. I've seen a counselor several times in my life when things were really rough and I was really struggling, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with seeking a professional. So seek out a therapist, find yourself a coach, get a support group. Certainly there's a lot of people that are having some substance abuse issues because of all the anxiety. Go to AA, go to NA. They have open and closed groups. And for those of you who do not know what open and closed groups are, open groups means that anybody can come. You don't necessarily have to be someone that's abusing substances. Just anybody can go. Closed groups are just for those who are struggling with substance abuse. If you are a family member of someone who is abusing substances and you're having a difficult time navigating that situation, go and seek out the group called Al-Anon. It's support for family members who have those in their families or friends or whatever your case might be that are experiencing substance abuse, so that you can find the support that you need. Because when you have someone that you love dearly that is struggling with substance abuse, it can be very, very difficult, and it can make you very, very anxious. So seek out some professional help from somebody. Also, I want you to be intentional about your self-care. I want you to sit down, just take a minute and make a list. And I want you to think about things that you can do to take care of yourself that maybe take 10 minutes or less. So that can be time to journal. I'm big on journaling. Taking a moment to exercise, taking a moment to read an article or read a chapter in your favorite book, take a long stretch or do some deep breathing. Anything that you find that's helpful for you, for something that's just for you, that takes 10 minutes or less, and make that list. And the reason I'm telling you to make a list and why it's so important to make a list, sometimes when we're anxious and sometimes when we have so many things going on, it's hard to think of how to take care of ourselves or what we would even want to do. Well, if you already, while you were in a good space, made a list, now all you have to do is go to the list and pick something off the list and just do it. But you already have something that you've already done just for you. Again, you can't pour from an empty cup, so take a moment and take care of yourself. All right? I sincerely hope that you found this helpful in dealing with some of the things that are going on in society today, and that you'll find something that works for you. So if something in this video was very helpful and you're going to take it away and use it, put it in the comments so at least I know what things you found helpful. If there are things that you've tried that have really worked for you that maybe I didn't mention, put those in the comments so maybe you can help somebody else. Thank you so much for watching. Be safe and treat yourself kindly, and I'll see you next Thursday.